Hello, my dear students and viewers. Welcome to my channel Scorpio class. Here I am with a new video of class 10, second language English poem, Ballad of Tempest, written by James T. Fields. So here we are going to learn the poem, glossary, and the summary of it in detail. So this video is going to be very informative and helpful for you all. So stay tuned till end and do not miss any part of it. So let's get started. But before that, if you are new to my channel and watching the video for the first time, do subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get the notifications of all the upcoming videos. Now let's get started quickly without wasting the time. Let's start off with the introduction. So, the Ballad of the Tempest, written by James Thomas Fields, describes the experiences of a ship crew as they go through a storm. This ballad is an adaptation of William Shakespeare's play The Tempest. The poem has a religious theme, as the sailors, being reminded of God, alleviates their fears of dying in the storm. So here the introduction is that the Ballad of Tempest is written by James Thomas Fields. Now what exactly is ballad? Ballad is a story written in the form of a poem. Okay, so here this ballad, which is actually a story, it's a play from William Shakespeare's play Tempest. This particular part has been taken, it's in the form of a poem, so it's called as ballad. Now, this ballad, this poem, it describes the experience of a ship crew members. The crew members who are in the voyage, who are in the ship, and they go through a very horrible storm. Thus, this ballad is again an adaptation of William Shakespeare's play The Tempest. Okay, so William Shakespeare has written a play by name The Tempest. Now, a tempest means a violent storm. So, based on that, the poem is the Ballad of Tempest. Okay, so now this poem has a religious theme. Now, how does it have a religious theme? Because your sailors, when they were in the midst of a sea and they were caught in a storm, having no source of saving themselves, they had just last hope, and that was God. They were reminded of God. They remembered God, and remembering of God alleviates their fears. It lessens their fear and fears of dying in the storm, and they had some hope and faith that they might have some way through which they would be out with the help of God. So this is how the whole poem goes and has a religious theme in it. So let's read out the poem and understand it. So let's move ahead, and the poem is here. We were crowded in the cabin. Not a soul would dare to sleep. It was midnight on the waters, and a storm was on the deep. This is a fearful thing in winter, to be shattered by the blast, and to hear the rattling trumpet, thunder, cut away the mast. So we shuddered there in silence, for the stoutest held his breath, while the hungry sea was roaring and the breakers stalked with death. As thus we sat in darkness, each one busy with his prayers, we are lost, the captain shouted as he staggered down the stairs. But his little daughter whispered, as she took his icy hand, isn't caught upon the ocean just the same as on the land? Then we kissed the little maiden, and we spoke in better cheer, and we anchored safe in harbor when the morn was shining clear. So, this is the whole poem what we have seen. Now, let's look at the summary and the explanation. But before that, let's look at some of the glossary's hard words which are there in this poem. So, very firstly, we have ballad, which means a narrative composition in rhythmic verse suitable for singing. Okay, as I said, it's a composition, it's a story. It's written in a rhythmic form so that you could read it as a poem or sing it. Next, tempest, a violent storm. Cabin, a private room on a ship or boat. Shatter, to break apart. Rattle, to make a rapid succession of short, sharp noises. Shudder, to shake. Stout, brave, or determined. Stagger, to come unsteadily. Anchor, a metal device attached to a ship or boat by a cable and cast overboard to hold it in a particular place. Now, this is a device that is attached to a ship to fix it at the end of the harbor so that it could hold on in a particular place. If not, if you leave it, the ship may flow with the waves of the sea, right? So it is known as anchor. Now, harbor, it's a space for a ship. Breakers, large turbulent waves moving towards land. So these are large confused waves, like it's not in one direction and it's just moving towards the land, and it may cause damage, or it may be a threatening one. So these are some of the glossaries which we find in the poem. Now let's move on to the summary of the poem. So here in first two stanzas, let's see what is the explanation of it. So the Ballad of the Tempest, it's a simple narrative poem. It is covering the incidents from midnight to morning. So the whole experience which the voyage people or the crew members had here is during midnight to morning. When the poem begins, we see that the crew are all crowded in the cabin as the sea is on as they see is on the storm, and they think their end is near. So here we see in the first stanza, as the poem begins, that all the crew members all are crowded together in a cabin because the sea was in storm. There was a so strong storm, and they thought that their end is near because there was no hope of saving themselves because it was a very bad storm. But they are unable to sleep as they think that the strong wind would cut away the mast. Now, everyone was very fearful. They were unable to sleep the entire night because they had the thought again and again coming into the mind that the strong winds would cut away the mast of the ship. Now, what is mast? Mast is a flagpole which is or you which is your you which you find on the ship or in the big boats, you say. Okay, so they were having fear that the strong winds would any time cut this mast and it would break it. So they shudder at the thought of the hungry sea roaring in rage, ready to devour them all. Here they were so confused, they had so many thoughts in their mind that the hungry sea, which was roaring, which was having such a loud noises of the waves in anger, in rage. Rage means anger. So when you hear the long or the very strong wave sound, and you feel as if somebody is shouting in anger. So here the poet is very nicely comparing it. Metaphor is used. He says that hungry sea roaring in rage. That means there were very strong waves which were coming, and it was like ready to devour them all, like swallow or eat them up at once. So that kind of situation and scenario was in the sea, and this crew members along with the ship were caught in it. I hope this is clear. Now let's move ahead. The captain himself has lost hope, and he announces that they are lost. So here, under this situation, after having all the try of saving themselves, the entire crew, the captain himself had lost his hope, and he announces that now we are lost, we have given up, now we have no chance of saving ourselves. So, however, the innocent little daughter of the captain is different from the rest, and taking the cold hand of her father, she reassures him, saying that God, who protects them on the land, will save them out on the sea too. So here we see that captain's daughter, innocent little daughter, is also here in the ship. And when she sees that along with her father, all the crew members have given up, they have no hope, she catches hold of her father's hand. Icy hand means when they are at the last stage, or you can say that they have left all the hope of living alive now because of the danger. So at that time, she comes, she holds the hands, and she reassures her father by saying that there is God upon us who saves us on the land. So, same way we have God upon us in the ocean, also upon the sea, also. So, He is going to save us. So, this was a kind of motivation that was given by the girl, by the child to his father. After listening this, The sailors, who had been praying without much conviction, now realized the power of faith and grew cheerful. Now, after listening to the girl's words, the daughter's words, the sailors had now have more faith on them, have more faith on their prayers, though they were praying, but not with much conviction or hope. But now, after listening to the girl, they realized the power of the faith and they became cheerful. They had a good hope now, and they were motivated by the words of the daughter. Now, as a sign of God's mercy, they are able to reach the harbor safe, even as it turns out to be a bright morning. So now there was a God's mercy because they had more power and faith in God. They prayed much more as the daughter has motivated them with the words. Now they were able to reach safely in the harbor, and it was a bright morning. In this simple poem, the poet talks about the power of faith. In times of difficulty, complete faith in God will give us peace of mind. The poem also shows that we should submit ourselves to the will of God because through human endeavor alone things cannot change. So, very beautifully, the entire poem gives us the message of having faith in God, the power of faith, the entire power which the faith may bring in you, and what kind of power the faith and the hope has. So here with the small faith which was just letting up with the girl had grown the faith in God among all the sailors, and they started praying, and this is how with the mercy of God they were saved. So here the similarly poet says that in times of difficulty you should have complete faith in God, and that faith will give you peace of mind, and that is how you are going to come out of that problem. So the poem also shows that we should submit ourselves to the will of God, because only the human attempts to save or being success alone cannot change the things, or only your endeavors, your attempts cannot achieve your goals, or your uh, or your uh, or your goals, or whatever you want to achieve. It alone cannot help you out until and unless you have faith in God and God's mercy on you. So this is how the whole poem is explained. I hope I made it easy for you all to understand, along with the summary and the meanings. So with this we complete our video here, and for more such videos and the question and answers, do stay tuned and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.